Welcome. It is another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast, our second episode of 2021 and hundreds before that. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being with us. My name is Phil Thompson.
And I'm Steve Lacy.
We come to you every week. We're a tech company, and today we're going to talk about a subject that's maybe a little different on podcasts. We've never, ever talked about this. I'm going to call this podcast, at least off the top of my head, I'm going to call it What's in a Name? And we're going to talk about our name this morning. The intro, of course, if you hear the intro of our podcast, talks about brought to you by JSL Solutions, which is our parent company that Steve created back in 2001. In fact, it's our 20-year anniversary, right?
Oh, yeah. It'll be August, but yeah.
Yeah, but going on 20 years.
August 2001.
All right.
It's all that was where I got the very first customer. I guess I probably started working a little before then, but
yeah,
it's like that first check, you want to frame it and stick it on the wall. I just remember being so excited.
Who was your second customer?
Well, that would have been your ministry. You were on staff at our church and moved off and started your own. So yes, you were the one of the, I don't know if you, but the first check actually came from one of Ed Delph's ministries.
Ah, yeah, Ed Delph, yeah.
It may have been even before we had launched formally. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. So JSL Solutions is kind of our parent company, but from JSL Solutions has come streamingchurch.tv, which is really our main deal. myflock.com it really is out of that, myflock.com, which still exists today, and then streamingchurch.tv, and then churchapplive.com. So today we're going to talk about streamingchurch.tv and the name. And if anybody has been around in streaming video, you're going to know that there's lots of companies out there now, and some of that can be confusing.
Yes. And there's another company that we deal with every day that basically took our name and reversed it. So I've never told this story, and I was just thinking about it early this morning, thinking, we really should tell this story. I mean, you do a lot of the customer support. We get a lot of people that will, think that we're them, and I'm sure vice versa, and it just leads to a lot of confusion. So, how did that all happen? What's I wanted to kind of tell the story of kind of the legacy of all that whole thing, and explain, because we do know each other. And so anyway, starting in
the company, you're talking about the other company.
Yeah, the other company.
We know the company.
Yeah, we know the other company.
We know them.
And so we started streamingchurch.tv, I think in 2009, may have been the first time. And we've got, as Phil mentioned, we've got several products that kind of run under the umbrella of JSL Solutions, and streamingchurch.tv is one of those. So one of the first things, once we launched streamingchurch.tv, and I guess as usual, it got launched at my home church, was one of the first places to become a customer. And there were others, quickly as well. So anyway, once we launched streamingchurch.tv, I did the prudent thing and went out and trademarked the name.
Right.
And actually my brother is an attorney, so I hit him up and he said, I don't do that sort of thing, but I know some people that do. So we trademarked the name. And so we have the trademark Streaming Church. It's trademarked to our company. We didn't trademark our logo. We probably should go back someday and trademark our logo, but we did. We trademarked the name. And so this was back in 2009. So this is kind of the heyday. There were initially very few companies that were doing streaming that was geared for the church. And then very quickly, there were a ton of companies doing it. And I've got bookmarks of some of those companies. Oddly enough, there's probably somewhere between 25 and 50 companies out there doing streaming video, and a lot of them targeted for the church. Probably over 25 of them were targeted for the church. So
Tell me for a moment, just
Yeah.
for those who may not know, Steve, when we say we trademark our name, what does that mean? Trademark our name.
That means you have to hire an attorney, or in my case, you do pay their fees. They do a trademark search. I don't remember what the legal term is, but they'll go back, they'll do a bunch of research saying, has someone trademarked this before? If someone's trademarked it before, you can't trademark it. Or is it close enough to something else that's been trademarked? And so they do a bunch of research. And so the attorneys do that. And they come back and say, nope, we're good to go. The attorneys fill out a bunch of paperwork that goes to the Patent and Trademark Office, the United States Government Patent and Trademark Office. They submit the application. The government approves it or reviews it, and then either approves or denies it. In our case, they approved it, and so I have from the United States Patent and Trademark Office, it's a USPTO.
How long is it good
trademark.
for? When you trademark something, how long is it good for?
You need to renew the trademark. I think it's every 7 years or so. I can't remember what the term is.
Might want to check that.
You've got to go back and renew. Actually, the attorney gets a hold of us and says, it's time to go through the renewal process. Send me more money. So
right. Yep.
So
okay,
yes.
just for people that may not be aware of what that whole process is, thanks for explaining that.
Yeah, and some other, if you own your company, I love churches. Do churches go through a trademark at all? I guess they probably don't.
I never marketed the church I started, and it's still going. It's still got the name.
Still the same name.
Same name.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, if you register it, you have to go through the IRS process, 501c3. I mean, you don't have to be a 501c3 to be a church, but 501c3, and then like where I started mine was in Kansas of all places, and you go through that process of here in Arizona, it's the Arizona Corporation Commission, and Kansas has something like that, Kansas Corporation Commission. So you put all that in there. But I don't think they have to trademark, because there's lots of churches that have the same name. I mean, Legacy Church there's several legacy churches out there. So I don't know.
Do they have the same name in the same town though? Maybe that's the difference.
Could be. I don't know.
I know there's, I attend a live church. I know there's other live churches around that are completely not affiliated with us, but we digress.
Right. Yeah.
So yes, we trademarked the term. As I mentioned, other companies were popping up, and I call my brother I actually first call my brother and go, hey, I found this other company on here that it was streamingchurchlive.com. And what should I do? I want to call them, let them know we have a trademark. And he's like, no, you don't do that. I was like, what? Yeah, sure. I can let them know that we have a trademark. He says, no, your trademark attorney is going to send them a cease and desist. And I was like, okay. He goes, yes, do not talk to them. So I guess I'm new to this whole thing. So the attorney sends out the cease and desist, and this company that had basically changed their name from whatever they were before to streamingchurchlive.com said, oops, yep, we see you got that thing trademarked, and we're going to go back to our old name or choose some other name that's not trademarked. So
normally people abide, if and most people do this by accident, I would think, so if they get something saying cease and desist, they realize, oh yeah, we goofed up here, sorry about that, and most reasonable companies will make a change.
Right. Yeah, they'll go back and they'll say, oh, yep, don't want to, we respect that, we're going to move on. So, but there was a company that came along. This was probably just 3-4 years after we were underway, streamingchurch.tv, called Your Stream Live. And they had changed their name to churchstreaming.tv. And so went through, we've done this before, call the, attorney, they send us so he goes, okay, we'll take care of it. And then they come back and find, over time that they basically said, no, we're not going to comply. And while we're at it, we're going to countersue you. So, so we're like, I was just really shaken by all of this, obviously. And, the trademark attorney that was going to actually, I think another attorney was brought in to handle the case. And they said, oh, this will be, no problem. We can, we'll go to court. And so they explained the process, which would have taken about a year. I think I remember they said, here's step one, and then step two, and then you go to this court, and all these different things. And I was like, how much is this going to cost? This is basically what my thoughts were the whole time.
Right.
And about halfway through the process, the Your Stream Live guys, AKA Church Streaming TV guys, sent their attorney, sent our attorney thing saying, hey, we're going to drop, if you will drop your trademark infringement, we'll drop our case against you. They wanted to have our trademark removed.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you that. Why were they suing us? I mean, I know this, but just for the sake of our viewers and listeners, why were they suing us? We're the ones that had the case.
Yes. The counter was that trademark should have never been approved. And we're going to go put a case together to remove your trademark.
Yeah.
So, so that's what ensued.
Yeah. So they eventually come around and say, well, look, we'll drop this lawsuit against you if you will drop it against us.
Yes, basically, yes. And so I went, I had the fortune of, my former life in corporate America. I worked for a large aerospace firm, hired a bunch of engineers. One of the engineers that I'd hired, young engineer right out of school, actually hired him and his best friend. They both went to high school and college together, and just didn't know they were best friends until I hired both of them. And they're like, oh yeah, this Andrew's my best bud. It's like, we went to, we grew up together in a little town up north of, they grew up in Pine Top. Anyway, he's an engineer, worked for me for a few years, and said, hey, Steve, I'm going to leave and go get my law degree. And he went to the University of Virginia. It's a fairly prestigious school, and got his law degree. So he has his engineering degree and his law degree, and he's went off to Silicon Valley, and he's a patent attorney for in Silicon Valley. So he's got software and engineering and all kinds of background, and a law background. So we exchange Christmas cards every year. So I gave Andrew, is his name. I gave Andrew a call and said, hey, what, I said, this is what's going on. What are your thoughts? Because I know the attorney we were working with, they wanted to fight it and run through this thing, and they're getting paid, obviously.
Sure. So
they're wanting to run this thing to ground. And Andrew's a believer, fellow Christian, and so I kind of reached out to him and just kind of get his opinion of things. And he advised me. He said, this whole, it just doesn't look right, and it doesn't feel right for a Christian company to be, in a legal battle with another company. And at the time, there were other companies that, had come along. And as I mentioned, this happened before, these companies had come along, and they we kind of somehow were serving the church better. And I felt like we kind of rose above these other companies, and they kind of faded away. So I think, these guys will probably be in that similar kind of vein, they'll just fade away. And so I prayed about it and thought about it, and thought, let's cut our losses. I've already spent a bunch of money on attorneys. Legal. This is going to be another, they said, 9 months or so, but I could see it could go on forever, So he said, we'll drop our suit of your trademark infringement, and in turn they would drop their suit to try to remove our trademark. So we have kind of happily coexisted for years since then. This is dating back to what, I don't know if you're 14, 13.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember all
And
this. Yeah,
yeah, it was like 7 years ago.
yeah,
And so they moved forward and they actually rose up in the world. So there was some, the kind of the thinning of the herd with those that were serving the church with streaming kind of came about, and there were some that emerged. And fortunately, we were one that are still around, and then they are still around. And so
they're around, but somebody bought them out too. They're different. I mean, a different
yes,
company owns them
they
now.
were bought by another parent company that bought a bunch of products that serve the ministry. And actually, the guy that was running the company when we were going through all this has left. He's since left the company, and actually, we've through other negotiations with other companies, we kind of got to know some of each other's, as you know, and we know the CEO of Boxcast and others, and kind of
Because this company that we had the problem with, they had bumped heads with other companies over different deals.
Yes, there was actually I went to a trade show in Dallas. Quick story here. And this YourStream Live, aka ChurchStreaming.tv, had a booth there, as well as some other vendors in the space. And so I went and dropped by actually Boxcast booth and just introduced myself because we were in the same space, and got to know, and got to know them a little bit. And there was some legal things that happened between, it turned out that the YourStream Live guys had got into some legal issues with some other companies as well.
Right. Yeah.
That I don't know any details of, but
there's no reason to go into details, but there seems to be a history there.
Yeah. So anyway, it's been kind of a thorn in our side for years.
Yeah.
And I mean, you face it with people calling, and we face it with just trying to educate people and stuff. So,
I mean, we get calls quite often, and even chat. We do live chat at streamingchurch.tv, and there'll be people, my streaming doesn't work, and what's wrong with you guys? And it's like, okay, who are you? Can't find you in our database. Are you sure you've got the right company? Oh, yes. And eventually we drill it down to like, oh, I'm sorry, I got those other guys. I'm a customer of those other guys, and I've reached out to you by accident. Sorry. So it's, and I'm sure our streaming church customers have bumped into that too. On the other side of the coin, I'm sure they've reached out at times.
Yeah, I would assume that it has. But yes, we do deal with. A lot of times we'll get a customer that's having troubles and we can't find them in our system, and
it's not our customer.
But
I always say, hey, if you really want some really good customer support, you might consider coming over to us.
Yes, exactly.
We have had people come over to us. Not necessarily, I don't know all the specific reasons, but we've had former customers. And we've had people with streaming church that have honestly left us and gone to them. So there's different reasons for that.
Right. So kind of the it's unfortunate. We actually own the trademark. We own the name. We were the first ones there, and they changed their names to that. I think the motivation was they said, oh, here's a market. Here's the church. Right. That could be a big market. But we need to get a different name than YourStream Live for that market. So that's what motivated them to change. Whereas we've only served the church. All of our products are.
I think you're right. A lot of these companies have been serving secular organizations, and as you just said there, they see the church market and realize, oh yeah, this is something we can get into. Let's change our name, or at least have something that we go by for the church market. And that's, I think, exactly what happened here in this case. And it's just a ball of confusion. And some weeks it's not too bad, but other weeks we do have occasionally some people get confused.
All right. So that's the story on that.
So that's what's in a name. So streamingchurch.tv, that's us. Ask for us by name, streamingchurch.tv. And it is kind of interesting because we go, and we have regular customers that I talked to somebody yesterday on the phone that's a customer, and he kept referring to us by the other name, Church Streaming. And, this was in our conversation. He's already a customer. I'm like correcting him. Like, I think he said it like 3 times in the call. And I was like, you mean streamingchurch.tv, right? Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So it is a little bit of a pain in our side at times. And I don't know. It's just one of those things. And so let me ask you a question. If you had to do that all over again, 6, 7 years ago, whenever it was, would you have changed your strategy?
I probably would. So
You would have spent the money, the legal
I would have
fees
probably
to
spent
fight
the
it.
money in legal fees and go through that to avoid this past 7, 8 years worth of
Yeah.
confusion in the marketplace. So
Yeah.
at the time, I was thinking that wasn't that big a deal, and that we, our kind of brand stood above and beyond the other guys that were out there, and
Right.
but it's led to a lot of confusion over the
So,
years.
what advice would you have for people listening here? And I don't know if they'd be in the same boat. I mean, we just mentioned at the beginning of the podcast how I don't think churches trademark their name. Maybe they do. I could be all wrong on that. After all these, I've been working in churches for like 42 years now. In fact, I just finally retired from the ministry of serving that I was serving here for about 7 years. But what advice would you have for somebody listening to this podcast or watching us on video here? I mean, through this whole thing you've experienced, what we've experienced, some thoughts on if somebody came to you?
I would definitely invest in the things early on. Like, I'm glad that we did get the trademark. I'm not sure what motivated
I remember
us
what motivated us. I
to
remember
get
who
the trademark.
Jeff gave us it. Jeff is the one that actually advised us to do that. Jeff Love.
My senior pastor. Huh?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't remember what the motivation was, because we didn't trademark some of our other products,
Right.
but we did that one, and maybe with our new product coming on the horizon, maybe we need to trademark it too.
Yeah, we do have something new coming up, but we can talk about that in a future podcast.
Yes.
Pretty exciting. So again, just your thoughts. Would you go just cover all your bases?
Yeah, I would cover all your bases. I would seek wise counsel, as it tells you in the Bible, and I felt like I did do that. So, I mean, looking back from my personal vantage point, I would probably said, I might have done things differently, but from, God was in control, and I prayed about it and seeked, counsel from other wise Christians. It was the best thing. Maybe it was the best, never know. It could have really,
Right.
I could have avoided, maybe it would have driven us, all our fees would have gone to lawyers and we wouldn't exist anymore. I don't know.
It's possible, and I guess it's possible that they could have prevailed or something. I don't know, and then you're looking at other changes. Who knows? I think you have to be careful with looking back at regrets. And we all have regrets on certain things we've done in life, but you can't dwell on them. And sometimes the regrets, the experiences we've had may not have been as bad as you just said, may not have really been that big of a deal after all, even though it is annoying at times, what we have to deal with sometimes. But I think that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just wanted to get the message out that, what's the story behind this thing, and what our viewers, listeners might be interested in knowing. Because if they've heard of us, they've probably heard of the other guys as well.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. All right. Well, good deal. Yep. It would definitely, if you do a Google search, we show up, they show up, and there's obviously lots of other companies show up too. Lots of people have gotten into this now since we started doing streaming video, but we are still, I think, standalone when it comes to the things that we offer the church.
Yeah. So one regret, I forgot about this one. What I did when we started Streaming Church is I registered several domains, and just to kind of if you go to streamingchurch.com, that comes to us. If you
Right.
go to mystreamingchurch.tv, it comes to us. There's several different, but I neglected to register the churchstreaming.tv domain, the exact opposite. And that was the only one that I didn't own. We didn't own as a company that was available, and that's what they snapped up. And so if I had spent a few bucks on a domain, I could have avoided all of this.
Maybe, although I have also heard of lawsuits being thrown around by companies that are legitimate companies, and somebody has snatched their domain years before. I've heard of
we
some
definitely would have
litigation.
avoided this because we would have owned the market. They wouldn't have been able to set up shop on the internet with a name so similar to ours, because we would own all the names similar to ours.
Right. Yeah.
So,
all right. So that's another piece of advice for if you're listening and you starting a business or something, get as many of the domains as you can.
Keep the ones that are just right up your alley, that'll be typos of your domain or just reverse of your domain or confusion of your domain. Register those too. So even if people are out there typing them in wrong, they still end up with you.
Yeah.
I would do that. Domains are cheap.
Yeah. My church, the church I was working with recently, the last 7 years, when I first came on staff as executive director, they had several domains, and the guy before me dropped them all except the one that we were now using. And I remember thinking, first of all, I wasn't crazy about what we had, but then I thought, well, we can always get these other ones and point them, and he had dropped them. And I said, why did you drop them? He goes, well, didn't want to spend another $10 a month or something. Well, I don't know what it was.
$10 a year.
$10 a year, and I just thought, and I actually went back to try to snatch one of them, and it was already gone, So definitely keep that in mind when it comes to domains. Get as many as you can, as you just said, if it's close to what you're doing.
Right in your alley. Yes. Just go ahead and invest the $30, $40 on a few extra domains.
Yeah, they're a little high now, a little higher back than they were back then, but still, it would still be a good investment.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Well, sounds good. What's in a name? That's what I've called this off the top of my head. That's who we are. That's the background of streamingchurch.tv. If we can help you in any way, when it comes to streaming video, we do lots of other things too. Reach out to us. You can just send us an email, support@streamingchurch.tv, or you can chat with us live at streamingchurch.tv. Or streamingchurch.com, right? You could find us there, and we're around during usually regular business hours in Arizona, because that's where we live. It's a nice sunny place here in Arizona. 72 today will be the high, by the way.
Nice.
Just want to let you know that. All right, Steve, thank you very much. That's Steve Lacy. I am Phil Thompson. And again, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time on the Church Solutions podcast. Please take care. We will see you again next time.